Okay, so this one here is finally objective 3, use an alternate method for factoring trinomials. This is often called trial and error or guess and check method. Not one of the preferred methods, I would say, but it is traditional to use this method. And some people can look at these things, as we're on objective 3 here, and be able to factor them in this way. But if you don't, I suggest you use one of the other methods. Either specifically, I would suggest the AC method. It seems to be a really uh, systematic method of factoring these things. But here we do have to include this alternate method for factoring trinomials. So again, here we are. Objective 3, use an alternate method for factoring trinomials. So first, once again, we have a trinomial that has a number other than 1 as the leading coefficient. So our first step is to find pairs whose product is A. And we write all of these pairs out. And that's A, the term, the coefficient in front of the first term. Then we find pairs whose product is C. So we found the pairs of product is A. Then we find pairs whose product is C. We write all of these out. Then we choose inner and outer terms. We use the FOIL method in various combinations of these factors from steps 1 and 2 until the necessary middle term is obtained. So that's why it's often called a guess and check method. You try out these factors until when you use the FOIL process, it works out to the original trinomial. And if there is no such combination, the trinomial is prime. So the big part of this is these rules that we talked about before. If we have two positives in the trinomial, we're going to have two positives in the factored binomials. If we have a negative in front of the b and a positive in front of the c, we're going to have two negatives in the factored binomials. If we have a positive in front of the b and a negative in front of the c, we're going to have a positive and negative in the factored binomials. And then if we have a negative in front of the b, a negative in front of the c, we're going to have a positive and a negative in the factored binomials. So those rules are very important for this guess and check method. So here we are with this trinomial here. The first thing we notice is that there is a negative leading coefficient. So we've got to take out a negative 1. Anytime we have a leading coefficient of negative, we take out a negative 1. So now we can handle this thing. So what we do next is notice that we have a positive in front of the b and a negative in front of the c. So that means we're going to have a negative and a positive in the factored binomials. So we list the factors of the first term and the last. So the first is 1 and 2, and the last is 12. So we have 1, 12, 2 and 6, 3 and 4. So what we do is we do some analysis of these things to determine how to get 5 through subtraction, right? Because we got a plus and a minus. So we try out some factors here. So for example, 1 times 1 minus 2 times 12 gets us negative 23. That doesn't work. Then we try 1 times 12 and then 2 times 1, and that gets us to 10, so that doesn't work. Then we would continue on. So here we have 1 times 6 and 2 times 2 gets us to 2. We would keep trying these things out here. And eventually, we would see that these 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 work because we can do 2 times 4 is 8 minus 1 times 3 gets us to 5. So that's why it's typically called the guess and check method. So based upon what we know And we also know, since we have a negative here, we have a positive here, sorry. Remember, we're working with this one. We've factored out the negative 1. Since we have a positive in front of the b and a negative here, we know that it's going to have this form where we're going to have a plus and a minus in the factored binomials. Remember, we held on to that negative on the outside. And we found our factors before, right? So we put in the 1 and the 2. Now, the big question is, where is this going to go as far as the negative and positives go? Well, from our calculation, 2 has got to be multiplied by 4, and it's got to be positive. And 1 has got to be multiplied by 3, and it's got to be negative. So, based upon that judgment, we put the 4 here, and we put the negative 3 here. And anytime you do this in the guess and check method, you always check it by FOIL. And then we got back to our original trinomial there. But there is the guess and check method. Perhaps you've used this method before and you're comfortable with it. When you're first starting out with these things, I do suggest using something like the AC method or the box method. But you can use this method here if you want. So the important part of factoring is to find a method that works for you.